I was sitting on the back seat of the car, watching the rain-soaked streets pass by. It had been raining non-stop for weeks, and I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. I never liked the rain, but at the same time, I had missed it. As we pulled up to our new home, I felt a sense of unease. The house looked unfamiliar, and I couldn't help but wonder what lay inside. My mother's voice broke the silence. "We're home." I leaned forward, peering out the front window to get a glimpse of our new life. As I stepped inside, I couldn't help but feel a sense of curiosity. The living room was small but cozy, with 2 light gray couches and a coffee table in the center. I nodded to myself, taking in the simple yet elegant decor. My mother showed me to my room, and I felt a sense of excitement wash over me. As I walked downstairs, I saw my sister talking to my mother. I hugged her warmly, feeling a sense of comfort in her presence. We sat down to eat, and I couldn't help but feel grateful for my mother's cooking. The food was delicious, and I savored each bite. As the night drew to a close, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I was exhausted, and my bed beckoned. I fell into a deep sleep, but my dreams were far from peaceful. I found myself in a dark, smoke-filled room, my body aching all over. I tried to scream, but my voice was mute. I stumbled out of the room, desperate to escape the nightmare. I woke up to my mother's gentle voice. "Lucy, are you listening to me?" I nodded, still trying to shake off the remnants of my nightmare. My mother smiled and told me breakfast was ready. As we drove to the city center, I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. We picked up my school supplies, and I couldn't wait to start literature classes again. I loved reading, and it was always my favorite subject. As we drove back home, I felt a sense of contentment wash over me. I was tired but happy. My mother had prepared some snacks for me, and I eagerly devoured them. The rice cakes were delicious, and I felt grateful for my mother's thoughtfulness. As I settled into my room, I picked up a book and began to read. The words transported me to another world, and I felt my worries fade away. But as I read, I noticed something strange. The book I had left closed was now open, and it had been moved to the other side of the bed. I grabbed the book and cautiously approached the walk-in closet. The door was slightly ajar, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I pushed the door open, but the closet was empty. As I turned around, I was startled by the sound of books falling off the shelf. I rushed out of the room, closing the door behind me. I took a few steps back, watching the door as if expecting something to happen. As I stood there, frozen in fear, I saw a pair of small shadows moving under the door. My heart was racing, and I could feel my breath catching in my throat. Suddenly, my mother's voice called out from downstairs, breaking the spell. As I walked downstairs, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. My mother smiled and asked me if I was okay, but I just nodded, unsure of how to express my unease. I walked down the hallway, the soft fabric of the sheets caressing my arms. I stopped in front of my room and looked at the door, searching for the shadows on the floor, but there was nothing. I walked slowly towards the door and opened it. The room looked exactly the same as I left it. As I organized the sheets into the wardrobe, I decided to take a shower. I looked for some towels and made my way to the bathroom on the hallway. After removing my clothes, I got into the shower and opened the faucet. The cold water gave me goosebumps, and I couldn't stop thinking about the shadow I saw on the small space between the door and the floor. I wondered if it was all my imagination or if it was something like a ghost. Once I finished taking my bath, I stepped out of the shower and wrapped a towel around me. I noticed the bathroom door, which I had closed before going into the shower, was now slightly opened. I knew it could have been my mom. I walked out of the bathroom, and just when I was about to close the door, something caught the corner of my eye. I turned around and looked into my room's direction. The door was slightly opened. I blinked twice and narrowed my eyes. Soon a figure appeared in the door's crack. I opened my eyes widely and took a step backward as I stared at the figure. It wasn't really defined, but I acknowledged it was moving inside my room. "Mum!" I screamed, but just when my mother was rushing upstairs, the figure disappeared. My mother found me panting and pulled me into a hug. "What's wrong?" she asked desperately. I pointed at my room with trembling fingers. "There's something in my room." My mother's eyes widened and she turned around, walking slowly towards the room. I clung to her arm, following her. I was terrified, but I also wanted to know what I saw. My mother kicked the door open and rushed into the room, but there was nothing inside. She looked around and opened the wardrobe's door, but there was nothing there either. She turned around and looked at me, still petrified. "There's nothing here, Lucy," she said, a bit annoyed. "Go get changed. We need to go to the convenience store." I nodded and closed the door. I felt uneasy in my room now. I knew what I had seen, and not only once but twice. I walked hesitantly towards my walk-in closet and opened the door quickly. I thought I'd find something there, but there was actually nothing. I rushed and picked up some clothes, putting them on quickly, and ran downstairs. I was now afraid of my room because I knew there was something there. My older sister Lily spoke. "You've been quiet lately." She cared about me and had sworn to protect me and be a better sister. I placed a bag of salty snacks into the shopping cart. "No, I am just tired," I said. We walked around, wandering in the halls. There were many new products I didn't even know existed. My mother asked me to get some softener, and I nodded. After shopping, we went to eat dinner in a restaurant. I noticed how some people were looking at us and gossiping. My mother and sister realized it too, and they gave each other nervous looks. I didn't understand the situation. "What are they looking at us like that?" I asked, putting down my chopsticks. Lily cleared her throat and looked at me. "They studied with me in high school," she said, and my mother nodded. I looked back at the two women, thinking maybe they had a past with my sister. Once we returned home, I made my way to my room. I rushed upstairs, and just when I was crossing the corner to go to my room, I got goosebumps. I stopped walking and looked around, remembering the experience I had that afternoon. Swallowing hard, I walked slowly towards my room and opened the door. The first thing I visualized was darkness, since I forgot to turn on the light. The light switch was on the other side of the room. I carefully made my way through the room, my eyes wide open, not knowing what to expect. As I walked slowly towards the other wall, I felt a cold breeze around me. I stopped walking and felt my knees shaking. I blinked twice, but stayed still. There was nothing but darkness and silence in my room, but the atmosphere had changed since I walked in. The room was colder and quieter now, but I felt something different, like someone was standing next to me. I was so afraid that I didn't dare to move. Slowly, I turned around, hoping I could see something, but it was useless. The room was black. Swallowing hard, I returned to my position and took a hesitant step towards the wall, but a cold touch on my forearm made me jump in horror, causing me to run towards the wall and turn on the light in less than a second. My chest was moving up and down really fast, and my eyes were wide open. I looked around the room, not moving from my spot. My eyes desperately found the opened door, moving slowly at the beginning, but then, after a few seconds, it shut violently. I swallowed hard and felt my eyes filling with tears. I was ready to scream, but an invisible force shut my mouth. It was like someone was behind me, wrapping their hand around my mouth to keep me from screaming. My body stiffened at the weird sensation of a cold breeze wrapping around my body. My knees were shaking, and my tears had already fallen. It was more than obvious that there was something in my room, and I was confused when I arrived the first time in the house, but now it was crystal clear. I fought back, trying to free myself from the force that was keeping me still. "Mom!" I tried to scream after struggling with the force, but it quickly grabbed me and kept me still. "What are you?" I managed to speak, but I didn't receive any answer. I was terrified to death, but I tried to calm myself. It was useless to fight it. The force was 10 times stronger than me. "What do you want from me? Please let me go," I managed to say with a scared voice. I couldn't see anything behind me. It was like my head was being grabbed by something by force, so I couldn't turn around. "I won't hurt you," I heard a whisper. My skin bristled when I heard the voice behind me, close to my ear. I swallowed hard as I felt my heart beating faster. "Please let me go," I begged. After a few minutes, the force seemed to vanish, and now I was free from the Calvary. Looking around the room, checking where it went, I moved quickly, but there was nothing. Blinking several times, I stood on the doorframe and looked inside the room. It was quiet still, but now it wasn't dark. The light was turned on. Something caught my attention on the corner of the wall. A pair of dark eyes became notorious from the air like a drawing. I opened my eyes wide and stumbled as I took a step back, closing the door behind me. I walked backwards, watching my room's door. In the space between the door and the floor, I noticed a shadow that moved, like 2 feet walking around. My temples were beating, and I felt like my head was underwater. I looked around and found the bathroom door next to me. I opened it quickly and made my way inside, closing the door quickly behind me. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw my scared reflection. This can't be happening. Ghosts don't exist. I found myself mumbling to my reflection. I opened the faucet and grabbed water with my hands to wash my face. I thought I was maybe somnolent, so I needed to wake up. When I leaned back to see my reflection in the mirror, I found the same pair of dark eyes looking at me from behind. I froze in my spot and slowly turned around to face the figure that now looked more defined than when I saw it in my room. It was a boy with a translucent body. His features weren't well defined, and I could see through him. When our eyes met, I widened mine as I felt terror growing each passing second. "Boo!" he said, leaning towards me. I screamed, and when I tried to run towards the door, I accidentally stumbled and fell to the ground, hitting my head with the sink. I tried to open my eyes and get up, but the pain on my head was killing me. The room began to spin around, and everything went black. "Aish, bring me a wet towel, Lily," I heard my mother's voice. I opened my eyes and looked around slowly. It was my room. I saw my mother next to me, organizing some things on my nightstand. I remembered then what had happened. The ghost. I looked around desperately, looking for it, but my mother noticed I had woken up. "Please, stay still. You're going to get hurt again," my mother scolded me as she pushed me gently towards the bed. My head began to hurt again, and I took my hand to the place where it hurt.